there are a lot of big words here. To explain it more simply, Ursula K. Heise theorized eco-cosmopolitanism as a framing of ecological thought that decentered the specifics of place in the ways that we often typify place by nation, even by city or by region, so that we're understanding it as more of a global or planetary imaginary when we're thinking about ecological sustainability or conservation, things like that. So it's about the place being conserved, but within the larger scope of the earth. And so when I talk about sonic eco-cosmopolitanism, I'm thinking about actual ways that we music, with a K at the end, a term coined by Christopher Small, thinking about how we music, how we embed ourselves into sonic spaces in ways that are cognizant of the environmental ethics of a place. The ways that we music is not only performing, it's being an audience member, being passive, as some would say, but also having other ways of immersing yourself in sonic experiences that helps to demonstrate your awareness of these spaces. But I was going to play a brief clip from this video about Tremor, which is a music festival that I studied. It's a boutique kind of alternative music festival. It slants kind of in the vein of like rock music, very EDM, experimental things, and a lot of acts that aren't prominent acts. So they can bring them to this small island and kind of share this small island logic. And when I say small island logic, I'm referring to the fact that when we think about the Azores, it's an archipelagic space with 9 islands, but even the largest island is still quite small in this envisioning of island inhabitation. So we live on a larger island, I would say, right? And so these are smaller islands, and so they have a distinct role in shaping cultural imaginaries, how they view themselves in relation to the larger, I'd say, ownership or belonging to Portuguese culture, because it's an autonomous region of Portugal, but it's its own place and how it marks that sonically. And so there's the Azores on a map. What I'm looking at in the region is a blend of traditional and contemporary musical activities. And when I say traditional, I'm referring more to like the folkloric practices they have. And then the contemporary would be Tremor, Walk and Talk, other Burning Summer, other festivals like that that bring people, actively bring in tourists who are not of Portuguese descent often. Different experience of time and space. So this is something that's really interesting when I do my phenomenological framings or analyses of musical performances and do interviews. This is something that many people have said. They experience time and they experience the space differently in their bodies. And so I'm thinking about the way that we can use environmental logics or imaginaries to shape or understand that. Let me just click through for time. So one of the biggest distinctions when we're in the Azores is that they have a stronger connection to the Roman Catholic practices. And some of them would say like Festa do Espírito Santo is something that happens in May, and they decorate the ground with flowers and different designs, and they do it with a stronger urgency in such a way that people often identify it as the cult. And this word has a negative connotation, like cult practice, because it doesn't follow traditional Roman Catholicism. But what I find in the contemporary musicking is that it ties in these traditional practices in really productive ways to then interrogate how we're thinking about the environment, how we're thinking about the space in which we inhabit together. And so they're breaking this binary that often exists, but we know is imaginary, of the rural and the urban, in really strong and productive ways that I look at in my research. Keep it going. So one of the words that came up was technocultural, which is literally the recognition that as individuals as culture develops, so does technology, or we develop alongside or together in different ways. And so one of the technocultural aspects that really stood out to me was musicking with recycled instrumentation, especially that first year I went to Tremor in 2021. They would have recycled instruments, they would have old rotary phones, old MP3s, different things. And 2 ensembles did this. They had recycled materials. Another ensemble had roofing that they wired so that people could come up for participatory musicking and to play. So it was very inviting. It was also kind of informal. And because of these boundaries or the lack thereof, it enabled people to kind of break down their walls and to cohabit the space together in a way that was almost childlike. All of the objects are recycled objects on the tables. So when I talk about the music festival, because this is part of Tremor, ethos of like environmental awareness, it's also material. It's in the objects they're using and these afterlives of these objects. So this ensemble is called Phobos Dysfunctional Orchestra. And after they performed, all the audience members could come up and perform as well. This is just one example of what I'm referring to. And so you had children, you had adults, everyone, all these ages coming to kind of look at these objects transformed from just their original meanings. So they're given new life, they're given new purpose, and they're understood sonically. Click through. So this is another performance I was referring to where they have this wired roofing, and this wired roofing again is used as an instrument. And so when I'm thinking about these musical instruments, there's a new concept created by Aaron Allen, and it's called eco-organology, which is thinking about environmental organology. So organology is the study of instruments, musical instruments, the material culture, the history, the legacies. And so eco-organology is this burgeoning field, which this ties into because so many of these performers have chosen to take objects that we view as, it's pretty blunt, but dead. They've already had a life that's been spent and they repurpose it. And so it's really productive when we have people engaging with it, seeing the new life of these objects, also breaking down those boundaries. A publication I have coming out in the journal Ethnomusicology is talking further about this in relation to that idea of childlike play and how productive play is. That's something we've studied. So I know that there are a lot of intersecting threads in this work, but it's like I'm trying to just give you a rundown of a couple chapters of what will be in the book. So I was thinking about other work I've done that relates to kind of like ecofeminism, where I do analyses of popular music and performances and kind of the ways in which artists try to, in one sense, serve capitalism, but in the other, recognize kind of the urgency of our current planetary situation. And so speaking with the organizers of Tremor, one of them, Luis Ben Reyes, he says, yes, the thing we can't avoid is that people have to fly to come to this island. People have to continue to produce these not so lovely, these CO2 emissions, all of these other things that come with traveling or ecotourism, as we would often call it. But I wanted to think more about, as he spoke to me about the vision for the festival, beyond having tourists come from far places, an archipelagic logic, an archipelagic connectivity. So this relationality of sounding in relation to other islands is kind of archipelagic listening, a concept that my colleague Jessica Swanson Baker is looking at in relation to the Caribbean. How do we think about these logics of relationality for islands outside of the Caribbean? How can we understand it sonically in other contexts, and why does it matter? And I think that's what my work is further probing. So I know that we started late and that was a rush talk because 10 minutes is a fast talk, but I hope that there was something that made sense and that you could latch onto and that you continue to eat the cake. Thank you.